two next guests, also in Canberra right now, Senator Bridget McKenzie, of course, from the National Party, and joining us for the first time from the Labor Party. She is a lower house member of Parliament, and that is Meryl Swanson. Meryl, thank you very much for joining us. Bridget, lovely to see you as always, gang. So I've got to go to the easy stuff first for you, Meryl. It's about our what I like to call your leader, Each Way Albo. Now, the Guardian wasn't particularly happy that he was at that mining event last night, and they don't believe that he is taking a strong enough position when it comes to things like carbon emissions. Here, of course, is your leader talking about renewables and their prospect in the next little while.
Renewable energy is cheap, and the more we use it, the more we will cut power bills. Cutting power bills will cut business overheads, again that will spark jobs growth right across the country. Members of the Minerals Council are already moving. BHP, for example, has a renewable power purchasing agreement to meet half of its electricity needs across its Queensland coal mines from low emission sources, including solar and wind.
So I'm sure, Meryl, that we're on a unity ticket of I don't care what the Guardian thinks about this, but if the left is having trouble with where Albo is, what do you think?
Look, Albo has been absolutely crystal. He has been to my electorate, he's been in many places saying that he supports the extractive industries. He supports the jobs, he's said it time and time again, and in fact Tanya Constable came up to me tonight and said Albo was outstanding at the lunch, and in fact he ad-libbed away from his speech a bit, talked about gold in his electorate. So, you know, he is really doing well and saying that he is for the extractive industries. We're clear on this. It's about jobs now and jobs into the future, Paul.
Bridget, do you believe what the Labor leader is saying?
No, it's not just that I don't believe it, Paul. I don't think anyone in mining communities believes it. I mean, I don't think the Labor Party's learnt the lessons of the last election about which side of politics unashamedly backs their jobs, their families' future. And we saw it in the Upper Hunter by-election. And unfortunately, I spoke to other people that heard Albo at lunch today in the mining industry, because it's Minerals Week up here in Canberra, and they were very disappointed about his equivocation around supporting the future of the industry that actually underpins our regional communities and our national economy.
But Meryl, again, if there are people saying that to Bridget, they'll say that to Bridget, but then you've just made it clear where you believe the bloke is. How can Labor prove its bona fides on this rather than saying all of the right things consistently?
And that's exactly the point, Paul. We are getting out there. Albo came to Cessnock and spoke to the lodges, the mining lodges, on his birthday, on the 2nd of March. It was also the 25th anniversary of him being elected. He is reaching out to these people and saying to them, look, the Labor Party is always on your side, unlike the Prime Minister, who says one thing on one hand, but then is very quick to go to places like the High Court, for instance, and put up a case against people getting equal pay for the same job. So, in terms of demonstration, I think the Prime Minister's got some real demonstration to do as well.
Paul, can I just make a comment? The Labor Party's eating itself alive of recent months. I think good local members who represent actual workers in our economy, like Meryl, like the fabulous Joel Fitzgibbon, if only he'd joined the Nats, are trying so hard to make sure Albo actually gets on the page and the broader Labor Party. But symbolism is not going to cut it. These people can tell a fake a mile off. They need to have the policies to back up the rhetoric, and right now they don't.
53 million hectares of Australian land, in New South Wales alone, is actually owned by foreign interests. Now, we read about this in the Telegraph today, and some of these interests make sense and some don't. Canada, the US are locations that have got very significant interests here, as well as the Netherlands and the Bahamas. Geez, for tax reasons, I wonder. They are turning up the heat on Australia's rural property prices as part of a multi-billion-dollar buying blitz of our farms. An investigation has found that the 5 biggest investors in Australian agriculture, with the combined land and water assets, value $12 billion. They're all backed directly or indirectly by foreign capital. Senator, foreign investment isn't always a bad thing, but for obvious reasons, you want to make sure that something as important as water, even more so than land, is something that's controlled by, well, frankly, locals in my view. But what do you think?
Well, the National Party, again, Paul, are unequivocal about this. We sought to change our foreign investment policy when we came to government in 2010, and under Warren Truss we did that. So we now run the ruler over a raft of investments in a much more highly detailed way, and we also look at the cumulative purchasing power of various foreign entities to make sure it is in the national interest. Now, right now, if you ask a farmer if the government should say they can or can't sell their private property to the highest bidder, well, you know, I don't think you'd get out of town easily. So it is getting that balance right between private ownership being able to sell when and to whom they feel gets them the best price, and for us as a government and a community to assure ourselves that those purchases don't contravene our national interest. The reality is they can't take the water or the land with them, but they can take what is produced on that land. And so we've been keeping a very careful eye on not just what's produced, but vertically integrated supply chains. That might mean a lot of what's produced is actually being not disseminated on the domestic market. But COVID actually saw Josh Frydenberg, our Treasurer, put in a whole nother raft of a layer of oversight, if you like, around ensuring those sovereign assets that really impact our capacity to be independent of others, such as water, such as communications, such as energy, are also subject to additional oversight when it comes to foreign investment.
Meryl, I mean, water in and of itself, incredibly complicated issue, but for a lot of people watching us right now on Sky News on Win, it's the only issue, okay? Foreign ownership, I mean...
I think, Paul, can I just talk about this for a moment? I think, look, there are a lot of things that Bridget said that I really do agree with. One of the critical things here, and I think we're seeing this right across the country, it's not just in regional areas, but we're seeing people being outpriced, whether it's the housing market, whether it's farms. We know that there are a lot of really great, innovative young farmers who've got some fantastic ideas, but they're just finding it absolutely impossible to break into the farm market. Now, they're the sorts of people where we need to be coming up with innovative ideas to actually get them onto their land so that they can start to contribute, start to get towards this $100 million mark, you know. So it's really important that local, young and people who, you know, may be wanting a tree change literally can actually start to contribute to our agricultural sector. Knowing also that technology is going to play a big part in agriculture, as is, of course, water. And the other thing that's often forgotten about is soil, Paul. Soil is actually incredibly important because it's not just owning the dirt, it's what you do with it. And that's really something that a lot of people don't understand yet, but mainstream community members are starting to learn more about soil in terms of carbon storage and things like that. But what you do to the soil is important. But I'll just go to Bridget's point about the Foreign Investment Review Board. Sometimes we don't learn about the decisions of the board for up to 12 months. Now, I would say to the Nationals, to the government, we need to make that more transparent. We need to make it more timely so that people can actually get a better picture of what's actually going on at the moment. But my overall feeling on this is that we've got to keep encouraging this generational exchange of farmland to our young farmers to give them a chance up against the big agribusiness corporates as well. They've all got their place.
Paul, just on the water piece...
Yeah, just 1 second here. Can I just say what everyone is thinking and watching us right now? If the Labor Party had more Merrills and less KKs, it'd be way more competitive. Anyway, keep going, Senator.
Well, I won't disagree with you there, Paul. We're great golf buddies as well. But on the water piece, I think you're dead right. It is about transparency and timeliness. And right now, we don't really have a register of who owns the water in the Murray-Darling Basin and what they're using for and where they're located. And that's one of the reforms that Minister Pitt has announced in recent times. So I think it is imperative on us to actually make sure that these transactions are transparent so the Australian public knows who owns what. where.
Well, now, can we talk about some jobs here? Because we read again in the papers, we see on television news outside of the city that there are still hundreds, nay, thousands of jobs that go begging at the moment because people just won't leave the cities to be able to go and do them. It can be all of the obvious fruit picking, harvesting jobs that are all around there. The Daily Mail had a version of this today suggesting that people were lazy who didn't want to get involved in these particular jobs. So I'll start with you first, Senator. How do we move? So say a perfect example, right, is that in Melbourne right now during lockdown, there are stories of people who, if they missed 3 shifts at a restaurant, they wouldn't be able to pay their rent, right? Well, obviously, you could go and get weeks and weeks of work out of central Melbourne, yet for some reason, that message doesn't translate to young people to say, look, rather than doing 3 shifts in a restaurant, feel free to up and get your hands dirty.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul, and it's a great lifestyle. We've got great football, netball clubs out in the regions, great restaurants and coffee as well as jobs. It doesn't matter which local mayor I speak to in any regional community, they are desperate not just for fruit pickers and harvesting work in the agricultural sector, but for higher skilled and higher paying roles as well. We are desperate for people to come out and work at all different skill levels. And as a government, we've put a range of strategies on the table to assist this. We're willing to pay people over $5,000 to come out as a one-off payment, in addition to your wages, in addition to changes to youth allowance, which actually meant you could work without seeing your payment reduced, in a way of incentivising particularly young people to get out amongst it and earn a living. And unfortunately, the take-up rate has been incredibly low. It's very, very disappointing that young people don't see the benefits. Now, maybe part of that's agriculture needs to sell the story better, but I think a part of it is that it's way too comfortable sitting inside on the Xbox.
Maybe, Meryl, the idea is to give people free iPhones if they take up these jobs so they can post beautiful pictures of themselves at Magic Light on Instagram, because that seems to be a motivator more than anything else. So how do we make sure, because obviously if you want to learn anything, you can do it distance ed via the internet, you can do all of that, so it's not like working on a farm all day equals that's it for the rest of your life.
Look, Paul, I'm not going to put up an argument that people, won't do well in our regions. I'm a regional member. I love the regions. What I would say to you is one of the hardest things is housing. So, at the moment, I've got staff members who are finding it hard to get a rental property. I've been contacted by some of my absolutely incredible domestic violence refuges, places that look after people that are seeking rental accommodation. Yesterday I had an email from Carrie's place saying, look, I've got a woman with 3 disabled kids. She's been given a 90-day notice. The 90 days is up. She's got nowhere to go. The reason I'm telling you this story, Paul, is because while we've all got this romanticised idea of, let's just pick up sticks while we're young and go out bush and pick some fruit and have a great time, people have got to be able to live. They're often moving away from support networks like their parents and family, and this is seasonal often, so it's a big deal. So there's some of the challenges. It's all well and good to say, look, we'll give you $5,000, but if you still can't find somewhere to rent. And the other point I want to make, and I heard Deputy Prime Minister McCormack saying this a couple of weeks ago, oh, come to the regions, it's great. We want people coming to our regions, but we need to give them infrastructure as well. I've got the M1 that's got an old bridge. It's the last choke point between Sydney and Brisbane. We need that road absolutely finished and built. It hasn't even started. So it's all fine to say come to the regions. You've got to have hospitals, schools, roads, housing. You've got to have the things that people need to lead their lives, and people have got to feel secure in that choice of saying, OK, we will give it a go.
Ladies, I do appreciate it. What a great chat. Let's reconvene very, very soon, all right? Thank you very much. Meryl Swanson there, Bridget McKenzie as well. Good eggs, and I do appreciate them.